10 years ago, on October 12, 2013, Pokémon X and Y released worldwide for the Nintendo 3DS. They were the first main series games on the system, took the series to 3D, and whether you like these games or hate these games, it was still a fun time to be a Pokémon fan. It felt like a small resurgence on Pokémon that's only gone up since then, so today, let's look back at Pokémon X and Y 10 years later. I remember getting my copy on release day of Pokémon X and being so excited to play it. I played it every day after school, and once I beat it, I got right into breeding for competitive battling, which is why a lot of my PC boxes just look like this. A lot of my better Pokemon were transferred over to a newer game or are just stuck in a Pokemon bank account that I haven't accessed since 2014 or so they're just lost forever. One thing I never really look for anymore when it comes to Pokemon games are the back covers. The backs of Pokemon X and Y are mostly the same, have mostly the same exact wording except for swapping out the word X for Y on the respective versions, and a few different screenshots as well. We have new Pokemon, explosive 3D battles, 3D is limited to specific areas of the game, explore a majestic new region, and the next evolution in Pokemon, followed by some screenshots for a few of the new features. I also thought it was pretty funny how the last line of text on this section says, "Basic reading ability is needed to play this game," which I've proved wrong many times in the past. Now, loading up the actual game for the first time in a while, we see that I have 291 hours played, which isn't that much in the grand scheme of things, but I played this game for a few hours every day for the first 3 months or so that they were out. I don't really know why I just stopped playing this game as much, and I also didn't complete the Pokédex with only 508 Pokemon caught, which is about 200 shy of the 721 total that were in this game. I immediately just check out my party to see Nino, the trusty Talonflame that I found on Wonder Trade almost a decade ago, that has the Flame Body ability, which is great for breeding Pokemon, hatching Pokemon, and just flying around the Kalos region. I think the rest of the team that we have in our party are just Pokemon that I got off Wonder Trade or the GTS while revisiting the online for this game earlier this year, but I do have this cool Japanese Emboar, and I just like Emboar. Looking at my trainer card, I have max money, which I don't think is legit, but then again, I do remember spending a lot of time grinding money in this game, which we'll show on later, so maybe it is legit. And it took me exactly 1 week to beat the game, as I beat it on October 19th, 2013. Typically, I tend to beat Pokemon games in only about 2 or 3 days after release because I play them non-stop, but I remember trying to take my time with beating Pokemon X to make it last as long as I could, although beating it in only a week is still pretty quick. Let's take a look at our PC boxes next. I think the boxes should be pretty bare since most Pokemon should be transferred over to Omega Ruby or just lost forever in Pokemon Bank, but we'll see. I was able to find my Sylveon that I used when I first beat this game, and I remember it being a bit annoying to evolve from Eevee since it had a similar evolution requirements to Espeon and Umbreon, resulting in some people getting those evolutions instead of Sylveon, and then this Mega Blaziken that I used too. You can't normally get Torchic early on in this game, but there was an event back when this game first launched to get a Torchic with a Blazikenite, so I of course used it in my first playthrough. Looking back, that was a pretty obvious hint towards Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, which released a year later, but I was still surprised when they revealed Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire in about May of 2014. Also, look how Purloin looks in this game when it's just standing up on its hind legs. It looks so weird, especially because it wasn't doing that in the Generation 5 games. I did also find a ton of breed checks, as people call them, or Pokemon that I was breeding that didn't have perfect IVs, but were still pretty close. I remember that I used to Wonder Trade a lot of these or just trade them with other players who were breeding for the same Pokemon that needed it. I even found my Bayleaf that I used to beat Pokemon Soul Silver for the first time back in 2010, which I didn't even expect to still be here. For some reason, I just never evolved this Bayleaf into Meganium, and I don't really know why. But there's actually quite a few Pokemon from that Soul Silver game here still, like a random Trico that I have somehow. Some other highlights include this 2010 Shiny Event Eevee that was given out during some VGC event at the time, a Zapdos for my original copy of Leaf Green, a Ditto named after its own perfect IV since that's how we used to breed our Pokemon back then, and then the Greninja that I used when I first started this save file. Then there's a ton more breedjects like all of these Nidorans. I remember really wanting to get a competitive Nidoking and getting super lucky by hatching a shiny Nidoran male with perfect IVs and the right nature, but I have no idea where that Nidoking is now, but it was also the first shiny Pokemon I ever hatched out of an egg. Moving on to the Hall of Fame, here is my Hall of Fame team on the screen, and to my surprise, I only went through the Hall of Fame one time. I guess there wasn't really much of a reason to enter the Hall of Fame multiple times, especially when the main reason to fight the Elite Four again is to get money, and there are other easier ways to get money in this game. One part of this game that I haven't visited in a very long time is the Friend Safari in Kyolude City. Kyolute City in general is a great city with a lot of cool extra things to do in the post game, but when it comes to the Friend Safari, we haven't really seen anything quite like this return to a Pokemon game since, but basically the way it works is every single person that you add on your friends list has a specific Friend Safari that's of one certain type that consists of 3 different Pokemon of that type that appear in the Friend Safari at level 30. They have better IVs than standard wild Pokemon, were a way to find some Pokemon a bit easier to complete your Pokedex, and shiny hunters like to shiny hunt in these Friend Safaris, so it had a little bit for everyone to enjoy. You could even get a normal type Friend Safari with a Ditto, and if you had that, everyone wanted to be your friend to get as many Dittos as they could for breeding. Let's just check out this random person's poison type Friend Safari. The Friend Safari itself is just a small square with really not too much to it, and all we really encounter here are Kakunas and Ariadoses, so nothing really too exciting, but I also did add a ton of random people on this game just to get whatever Friend Safari they had. Let's briefly check out the online portions of this game next. While X and Y didn't introduce online play to Pokemon, they were the first games to do it right in my opinion, especially with the PSS page, which lets you see your friends list and other passerbys. Wonder Trade, a brand new feature, lets you trade for a completely random Pokemon with another person. And just look at how the passerby section on the touchscreen just keeps going and going. This is all people who are playing Pokemon X and Y online right now and are connected to the internet. I don't know if more people are on now for the anniversary or what, but it does definitely feel more populated now than when it does when I do my yearly check-in videos. First, let's go to the GTS and look up Pikachus. I figured Pikachu would be a pretty common Pokemon to have on the GTS since it's the mascot and pretty common to find in X and Y in general. And as you can see, there are a ton on the GTS. Sure, there's some ridiculous offers, like people who want a Mew for their low-level Pikachu, but after scrolling a ton of Pikachus for a while, I found this. Just 3 faceless trainers in a row with only hair that are offering a level 100 shiny Pikachu for a Fletchling. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that these are not legit Pokemon, but I'll bite anyway and try to trade one of my Fletchlings to see what happens. I offer up the low-level Fletchling like they wanted, and the game just crashes. I don't know if it always does that or what, but let's try searching for a Fennekin next since they should also be pretty common in this game as well as their starter Pokemon. I saw some funny trade offers here too, like a person with a shiny Fennekin who wanted a Shaman with a description of English, no hack. There were even a few other shiny Fennekins that could have been legit or could have not been legit, and just looking around the GTS like this made me miss the GTS in newer games. I know that the GTS is still in Pokemon Home, but it's just not the same going to the GTS in Pokemon Home versus going to the GTS in an actual Pokemon game. I did eventually find a trade request that I could fulfill, as this person just wanted a Snivy, so I traded over my Snivy to them for a Japanese Fennekin that I didn't even need and will probably never even use. Now, let's try Wonder Trade, one of the best new additions to Pokemon X and Y, and let's give out one of those spare Breedject Nidorans. I trade one out and get back a Zigzagoon right away. Wonder Trade always had a lot of low-level early route Pokemon from Kalos or Hoenn, and I see that even 10 years later, not much has changed. Let's just check out other parts of Kalos, like our home, which has Shauna just standing outside of it for some reason, then our mother who just heals our Pokemon when we talk to her. I don't think I've talked to her in almost a decade, and she didn't really have much to say. I also wanted to check out Lumiose City, as I spent a ton of time here too, checking out all the various clothing shops, battling in the restaurants, and of course, getting lost in Lumiose City. I was never able to find my way around Lumiose City and always got lost, but at least they had taxis here to just take you wherever you wanted for a small fee of like 700 Pokédollars. Then, if the cab driver liked your outfit and thought you were cool, they'd give you a discount, which looking back is kind of weird, but at least it saved you some money. Just walking around Lumiose City again took me back to when I first played this game. I remember being amazed that we finally had a 3D Pokemon game, and although some people think the move to 3D was a mistake and would prefer Pokemon to go back to 2D, it was still a really cool thing to experience for the first time at a Pokemon game and something we'll never get to experience again. Our first real stop in Lumiose City is Restaurant Lana, which offers a few different battling options while you eat your meal. This was nice to gain experience and also get money by selling the mushrooms you could get as a reward. Kind of strange how a fancy restaurant like this just gives you expensive mushrooms at the end of your meal, but I guess we'll take it. After we're done here, I decided to check out Restaurant Li Wow, which is the highest tier restaurant that gives out the most expensive mushrooms. While changing out my team for this restaurant, my 3D has died, so I had to charge it up again and get my team out again. I also couldn't revisit Pokemon X and Y without Mega Evolving at least once, so I took out my Mega Charizard X that I used to beat this game for the first time and saw it Mega Evolve to destroy this poor waiter's team. The meal in this restaurant costs a whopping 90,000 Pokédollars, which is quite outrageous, but it was well worth it to see Charizard Mega Evolve again. Could I have just battled the wild Pokemon for free? I guess, but this was cooler. Mega Evolution has to be my favorite battle gimmick they've ever added, as since Generation 6 there's always been at least one battle gimmick each generation, as out of all of the battle gimmicks it's the one that felt the most natural and just made the most sense. I remember when they were first getting revealed and one of the first Megas revealed was Mega Mewtwo X, and I genuinely thought it was Mew 3. It's a shame that Mega Pokemon aren't around anymore, although I kind of get why since they were quite overpowered. But that just wraps about everything that I want to check out in Pokemon X and Y 10 years later. I feel so old saying that because I still remember going to GameStop on a cloudy Saturday morning to get this game for the first time, and playing it all weekend then every day after school for months. I remember my routine being get home from school, play Pokemon till dinner, eat dinner, do my homework, then play Pokemon till I had to go to bed, which I guess isn't really too different from what my life is today. While Pokemon X and Y might not be the best games in this series, it was really a special era for Pokemon that I think is worthy of having the tagline of the next evolution in Pokemon as we saw in the back case of the box. Let me know what you guys think of these games in the comments down below, especially if you were lucky enough to play Pokemon X and Y when they were the newest Pokemon games back in late 2013 or 2014. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe as well. Thank you all for watching, have a great rest of your day, I'll see you all next time, and bye bye.